Welcome to Talking with Tech. I'm your host, Rachel Madel, joined as always by Chris Bouguet. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Rachel. You know, I go by Chris Bouguet, but you know what my alter ego is. You know what, when I don the costume, that I have another name that I go by.
I feel like you have lots of costumes, Chris. So like I'm not sure which one you're referencing.
Yeah, it's the one that only comes out when the sun is out.
Give me another hint.
It only comes out during specific times of the year, like the first day of school.
Does it have to do with an animal?
It does.
Shadow?
I am Shadow. That's right. You know that for people who are just listening, what is he talking about? So my wife is an assistant principal at an elementary school, and I have the great fortune of being Shadow, the school mascot occasionally, which is a black lab. So I don this black lab costume, and occasionally, like at a big volleyball game or something, I might get to be Shadow, or a spooky bingo, I get to be Shadow, and on the first day of school, I get to be Shadow. And here we are recording today, and it's the first day back for all the students. They're coming back today, and I got to get up wicked early in the morning, get into the Shadow costume, go out there in front of the school, dance myself crazy in front of all the kids, getting all the pictures with all the families, and it was a great time. And I'll even say, Rachel, I know we have a listener. I'll say hi to that listener right now who is a parent from that school, and sent me a picture of me as Shadow with her child, just saying, yeah, you know, this was awesome, and this my child loves when they get to see Shadow. So that was just, you know, it was just awesome. It's just an awesome way to start the school year. The first day of school, there's this energy and excitement and buzz around it. And at the time of this airing, when this banter recording will air, it's right there at the beginning. Some places won't have started yet. Some will have already started. But it's that time of year when it is that fresh, exciting, new optimism. Everything is exciting, and I'm extra excited, not just because of Shadow, but I can't tell you, already, my Teams was blowing up all day with teammates going, oh, we have new speech therapists, and they're already knowing about modeling and descriptive teaching, and they're asking about where, how far along are we on this journey, on our AAC journey? Like, they're already aware. They're coming up with ideas like having coffee talks with parents and trying to schedule that like once a month so parents can come in the morning and have a coffee with the speech therapist or other people and talk about AAC stuff. And those ideas are flowing right now. It's fresh, you know. It's not Thanksgiving time or later in the year when you're like, oh man, is it winter break yet? You know, summer. Like right now is that fresh excitement, and I feel it. You know, I feel that excitement. It's always great to start the year with that sort of oomph, you know.
Yeah, it's the buzz. Everyone's refreshed, revived, and that is always great. Like, I feel like we all need a break, and we all need to kind of regroup and disconnect. And yeah, that's the nice thing about breaks in summer, and everyone comes back fresh.
Well, yeah. And in public schools, you almost always have new people, right? People have moved on to go, if you're an elementary speech therapist or teacher, someone has moved on to go to middle school, and you're getting new younger kids in that have come in. If you're older, like there's always this, yes, it's refreshing from the summer, like, okay, I'm revitalized, I'm ready to go. But there's changes happen with the people that you're working with, which means there's this, again, this newness that is, that's exciting, you know?
Totally. And I feel like that newness is great, but also like it's hard because like it's like, oh, well, now we have a whole new team that we need to train up. But at least we're at the beginning of the year and we have that like energy and passion, and we're reminded of why we do what we do and why we chose this career. And so, yeah, I'm having a lot of students that I'm like introduced to their new teachers and their new paraprofessionals and all the people. And I'm like, yay, like we get to do some more training. Some of them have the same staff and teachers, but it's definitely a lot of turnover.
Always, and especially in special education, some of the data there shows that it's like 4 times than general ed, 4 times more turnover in special ed than general ed. So yeah, there's always going to be new training. There's always going to be new coaching that needs to be done. But each time you do that, there's new people. More people in the world now know, right? Like even if they've moved on and they've gone to something else, they still are more aware of how to interact with people who are learning language with AAC or using AAC now that they've learned language to express themselves. And so the awareness keeps growing. I got a note from one of the people today that said, a parent came in talking about the learning literacy through PRC program, like the learning literacy through Unity program on the language lab, and it's like parents are aware, some are aware. So it's just all that stuff is exciting to me, exciting.
Yeah, I am really excited about the new school year. I just feel like it's super great, like kind of fresh slate. Like sometimes I think by the end of the school year, like the parents that I work with, like everyone's kind of just like, oh, like I don't know what's happening. And there's just this kind of like trudging along. And a lot of my families are like, okay, like we're hopeful. We think this is going to be a great year. We're excited to get started. And so I'm hoping that motivation and excitement continues.
Me too. Let's see how long it can last, right? All right, let's talk about the interview today. So here's what we've got going on. I interviewed 2 people from New York City, and they talk a little bit about their work with adults, not just kids, but with adults. And so without further ado, let me introduce who we're talking with today, and that is Marnina Ellis and Marisa Portanova.
We'd like to thank all of the wonderful Patreon supporters who make this show possible. This podcast is funded by listeners just like you who've signed up at patreon.com/talkingwithtech to show their support. Because of the generosity of our amazing Patreon community, we're able to pay Luke and Michaela, our podcast producer and audio engineer, who keep the show looking and sounding great. Patreon supporters also receive bonus content, such as early access to interviews, behind-the-scenes recordings, additional curated resources and materials, and so much more. Check it out at patreon.com/talkingwithtech. Now let's head back into the episode.
Welcome to the Talking with Tech podcast. My name is Chris Bouguet, and today I'm joined with 2 very special guests. The first one is Marnina. Marnina, you and I have known each other for many, many years. I think where we met was at ATIA. You came to one of the pre-conferences that Beth Poss and I were doing called More Than Core. Back in those days, it was like everyone wanted core vocabulary, and they thought if they just had core vocabulary, all AAC would be magically solved. And we said, there's more to it than that. And so you were in that. I often think of it like this alumni group, Marnina, because so many of them have, we've continued on this relationship, like known each other since then. And many of them been on the podcast. And so Marnina, I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself. And then Marisa, you're here as well, because you 2 are colleagues that work here together, right? So, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, where you work. Give us the whole thing. Marnina, you want to go first? Give us your full name, then Marisa.
Sure. Thanks. I'm Marnina Ellis. You're totally right, Chris. It all goes back to that pre-conference at ATIA, where I feel like for me, that conference was mind-blowing. I have to thank you. You really changed my thinking about AAC, and between you and Beth at the pre-conference and you and Rachel with the podcast, I know I personally have learned so much, and I know how much you do for our community. And I feel like so many people learn so much. I want to start by thanking you. It's an honor to be here. I feel like I never thought I'd be one of the guests on the podcast as somebody who listens religiously. So this is really exciting. I'm lucky that since that pre-conference, I've been at ATIA every year, and we have stayed in touch, and that's been so great. I'm from New York. Marisa and I work together at Blythedale Children's Hospital. Marisa will give a little more info on the hospital itself, but I'm lucky that I was one of the members of the core team, the core assistive technology team at Blythedale. And to tell you a little bit about that, we work collaboratively with OT and PT and a rehab engineer. So we have people who specialize in seating and mobility and access, and our rehab engineer who can kind of think creatively. And we, Marisa and I, look at the AAC so that we all work collaboratively to give our patients are all pediatrics, and we give our kids the best shot they can in order to use their AAC and be successful. Personally, I've been here at Blythedale for a long time. I'm old. I've been here for more than 20 years now. And both Marisa and myself, as members of the speech department, we do AT, but we also see clients all over the hospital. I'm currently assistant director of the speech language pathology and audiology department, so I also have some administrative responsibilities, but I think like you, the AT holds our heart. I'm so glad to still be able to do evaluations and treatments for AT and AAC specifically.
Awesome. Marisa?
I'm Marisa Portanova. I've been at Blythedale for just over 4 years now. I recently joined the assistive technology core team, and I met you, Chris. Marnina introduced us at ATIA 2024, so that was really exciting. So as I'm still the newbie to all of this, I feel like I've learned so much attending your sessions that talked a lot about inclusivity and just really mind-blowing stuff that changed the way I look at my AT treatment therapy and the way I educate families and caregivers. So thank you for that. And thank you for having Marnina and myself here today. So I'll give you a little bit about Blythedale and what we do here and why the place we work is so unique and special. So Blythedale is New York State's only independent specialty children's hospital and one of only 14 pediatric specialty hospitals in the United States. We serve patients from birth through age 18, and we have a combined staff with lots of expertise and resources. We have the largest pediatric therapy department in New York State to provide exceptional comprehensive care for medically complex children and support their families. So the goal is to provide as much education as we can to these families with children who are medically complex. This way they transition home seamlessly and feel empowered to take care of their child as best they can. Children are admitted here for a variety of medical conditions, including respiratory, traumatic brain injury, pulmonary hypertension, feeding needs, complicated traumas, post-hospitalizations. We have cancer rehabilitation, spinal cord disorders, genetic and neuromuscular disorders. So we kind of treat quite the variety. And our hospital comprises of a 96-bed inpatient unit. We also have a long-term care unit with 24 beds. And we have a day hospital program, which is really neat. We're joined with the Mount Pleasant Blythedale School District. So what that comprises of is kids who really have intense rehab needs and can't get those needs met in their public school. They can continue their academics here at the hospital while also receiving intense therapies. So it's really nice to have them have a regular day with peers and also get their intense therapies right there. They don't have to go before school or after school. It's just built in during their day, which is really neat. Our goal here at Blythedale is to help our patients achieve their rehab goals and return to their families and communities.
And we're lucky that as therapists, we're able to service all our units. So we have our inpatients, our day hospital, our long-term care, and our outpatients. And we really support the AT needs throughout all the different units in the hospital. So it doesn't matter where in the hospital in the continuum of care you are, but we can take a look at it right from the beginning and hopefully follow you all the way through, including bridging that gap when you leave us and you go into the community, which we struggle with the same barriers that I know I hear your other guests talk about in terms of working with school districts and teachers and the turnover of staff and the children leaving. And we deal with those same struggles that everybody else deals with. We're lucky that within the hospital, we might hold on to them a little bit longer. But when they go to school, we are still dealing with the teachers and the pullout and the push-in and the same struggles that everybody else deals with. And especially once they leave, the training and making sure that there's no abandonment or lack of training when our patients leave us here at Blythedale.
Marnina, Marisa, would it be something I heard you say in that description is how closely you work with the family. So that's particularly that's a important goal, is to make sure that they leave aware, like they're learning along, and then when the time ends with you, that they have built a number of skills, and that. I don't know, in the schools, I think that's something we're continuing to learn, right? Is that, we do direct therapy 95%. I'm just throwing a number out, like 95% of the time. And yeah, we talk to you every once in a while. We maybe send a thing home in a composition notebook or maybe an email. But it sounds like you have a deeper, maybe more robust relationship with the family, but I don't know. So is that fair or not?
Yeah, we definitely pride ourselves off of working closely with the families. We want them to feel empowered to use the child's device and not be scared of it, because, these families might get this brand new piece of equipment. They're like, well, I don't know what to do with this. And, it's just going to sit there and grow dust. So we want them to feel like they know what they're doing to best help their child. So ongoing education for us might look like whatever is convenient for the family, whether that's a virtual telehealth session because it's hard for them to get to the hospital, or if we can get them in person, obviously that's ideal, but we kind of want to meet the family where they're at. So how do they best want to communicate with us, whether it be through writing in a communication notebook, talking through email, talking on the phone. It's really key for our kids because we want their goals to be addressed here, of course, in school, of course, but also at home, because we all know that children learn best when they're using their devices with a variety of communication partners in all environments. If they're using their device in an isolated setting with one person, it won't seem functional to them. It won't seem empowering. But if multiple people are using their device with them and they're getting their needs and wants and requests met, or engaging socially with other people in their life, it's just so much more powerful. So we definitely think it's important, and we're lucky enough to be able to do that here. So I feel like school is still the place that we're struggling. So it's nice to have these conversations and discuss what's working, what's not working, like if you have any tips. So
well, I mean, I right now what I would say is that I empathize with you about the turnover rates, and that I hope is a catalyst for shifting everywhere to more parent-centered trainings and experiences. I feel like we were closer to that in the school districts during the pandemic, because it was like, we kind of know the student's not going to be working on the screen with us, but you're sitting right next to them, so let me teach you some stuff. And that sort of has drifted. So I empathize you with that turnover rate, because you spend all year getting a teacher up to speed and then they leave because they're going to, and okay, it's one thing if they leave and they're going to Buffalo, right? Okay, great. We still help in New York State. But if they're out and they're like, I'm going to go work at Starbucks for a while, I'll see you, right? Then yes, that still helps a little bit, but they're not as frequently implementing those skills that you spend so much time building up. Fair?
Mm-hmm. Something also, I was going to add something that makes us unique is these families come to us often following a traumatic event or a surgery or some big change in their dynamic. And if the family is able to be here, they can be at bedside when they're inpatients 24/7. So we try to tap in to the families and to the assistive technology as early as possible, because we know that once they go to school, it's going to be a different game altogether. They're not going to be here. They're not like we're a regular school. You can't hang out all day like you do when we're inpatients. So I feel like we're really trying to maximize on that inpatient time as soon as we can, because you can tap into the parents in a different way than you can when they're in school.
Totally. That totally makes sense to me, Marnina. I know there's a number of students in our school district and beyond that get speech-only services. And what that means is, especially for the very young children, they'll come and like the preschool children that only get speech-only services, and the speech therapist will meet the family in the office, and they'll take the kid's hand and they'll go back to their room and they'll do speech therapy while the parent just sits there for an hour, flipping through their phone or maybe reading a book or something. It's like, wait a second, that would be an awesome time to take, like, hey, why don't you come with me? Why don't I teach you this stuff? Which sounds like exactly what you're doing. Like, hey, the parents here, why don't we learn some stuff while you're here, right? That's what you're describing? Awesome. All right. Now, Marnina, Marisa or Marnina, I can't remember which one of you said it. You use this term core team or core AT team. That makes me think there's two teams, or is there just one team? Tell me about the Blythedale assistive technology team in general and how it all works.
Sure. So we have this core team, which is comprised of a physical therapist, two occupational therapists. The physical therapist and one of the OTs do the seating and mobility. The other OT does access. Marisa and I, so there are two SLPs, we do AAC, and we have our rehab engineer. And the way we work, we're the core team that does the outpatient evaluations, but all of our staff has some familiarity with AT. So other people might be treating cases as well, but they can also come to us to consult that I have this AT kid, we're working on X, Y, and Z. The OT and I have tried this and we're kind of struggling. Can we all come together? And that's also where the AT core team comes in. So not only are we the core team that's doing the outpatient evaluations, we're also serving as consultants to our huge team of OTs, PTs, and speech therapists who are all also doing assistive technology services through their regular therapy sessions. Because we are the core team, we're also the main ones doing trainings to our large team of OTs, PTs, and speech therapists about assistive technology, about our collaborative process. We train them on our new devices. We offer appy hours when we've got learns about some new apps and we want to teach people about those. We kind of try to keep I keep saying large, but we're probably 70 to 75 PT, OT, and speech therapists combined. So we're really trying to at least give everybody some level of knowledge in what we have, what we do, how we can help, and where they can go, what resources we can offer. So when we say the core team, it's the small group of us who really do the intense education and learning and ordering and getting new devices and providing training to our large group of therapists who are all great about working together and wanting to learn. And I saw you were trying this with this other patient. Can we try it with this patient? And we really do our best to kind of be available for the school staff, the therapists, keep the doctors in the loop of what we do so that we can really have everybody using assistive technology across the spectrum as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Marnina, can I dig into that a little bit? Because again, sure. The connections are with the school district and how our services are provided, or at least the services in my school district are provided, are very similar, right? We have a small number assistive technology team. In my case, it's 9 plus me, so 10 with occupational therapists and people with transition backgrounds and some speech therapists, right? So this similar like core unit that then goes out to the larger related services and educators beyond that to provide educational services and help them brainstorm through what they're doing. And that sounds, what they might put in place and what implementation might look like. And that sounds exactly similar to what you're doing for all the extended family at Blythedale, right? Is that fair?
Yeah. The advantage is it gives the staff a point of contact. So when you're struggling, you know who to reach out to. And then if it's not, maybe that's more of an OT issue and I'm not the right person, or maybe I can work with the treating therapist and the teacher, or maybe the private duty nurse or the aide in the classroom to kind of figure it out together and train those few people. Exactly. That's what I always say, like we might work in a hospital, but at the end of the day, it feels like we're all working in a similar situation with similar barriers, similar, wins and strengths and similar, frameworks.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask another follow-up question about that. And that is, how do they approach you if they need your assistance? Like, I think this kid needs to get something and that means that my pathway is through you, or I don't know what to do, so I'm going to come to you. Is that all over the map? Like, well, some people have built their own capacity. Thank you, Marnina, Marisa, and core team. I have learned what I needed to learn. I'll come to you. Like, you've built capacity in them. Is it all of that? Like, how do they know to come to you?
So that's a good question. Within the hospital side, I think there's an understanding of who the core team is and what we do. We do trainings at the beginning of the school year to orient the new staff and the continuing staff that we're still here, here's how to contact us. We are fortunate in that we have an AT coordinator, Tracy, who you can always contact Tracy and say, I need some help. Can you put me in touch with the right person? But we're lucky that many of our therapists, OTs, speech therapists, certainly the PTs when it comes to seating and mobility, have a level of comfort on their own. And we're lucky that we have a loaner fleet of devices. I mean, the speech department, there's 2 speech therapists per office, and every office has an iPad with a variety of AAC apps. We have a bunch of fully integrated communication devices, Toby's, Accents, other brands with eye gaze or, a head mouse, or able to use switches more easily than with an iPad. So therapists are free to go and help themselves and use what they think is appropriate and get started, but they should always hopefully feel like we're here. So when they're feeling stuck or if they need help, that they can say, can you come to this session? Can we bring the team together to take a look? What are your thoughts? Like, here's what I'm thinking. What are you thinking? And I think one of the things that our therapists love about being here is that collaboration and is that knowing that we're here to support each other. And, if you think you can run with it, great. We're not going to stop and tell you, no, wait, don't. Please run with it. But if you're feeling like you're stuck, know that we're here to support you and help you problem solve it.
Yeah, that support is key. I'm just going to make some assumptions here that maybe your turnover rate is a little less than the school districts, right? Because if they exist in a supporting environment, they don't want to leave. Like the grass is rarely greener, right? When you peek over the fence, it's like, man, I have these awesome AT team. I have awesome colleagues that I work with. I feel like supported. I don't feel bad when I don't know something. I feel like, okay, that's an opportunity for me to learn. Well, that sounds like just a great place to work.
Yeah.
We always encourage questions. Curiosity is how you grow your mind. So always asking questions. So it's nice to be in an environment where we're all supporting one another and also across disciplines. So it's nice that we can even just contact like someone in another discipline to take a second look to or get their lens on something.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me ask you this again, a follow-up question is, you were mentioning like the number of beds, which means like the number of people you can service in one setting, right? But then you have the other settings. Is it fair to say that most, again, I'm making an assumption here, so you'd be like, Chris, this is wrong or this is generally right, that I would make the assumption that the vast majority of your patients do use some assistive technology. Maybe it's low tech, maybe it's high tech, but it's a vast majority of them. Is that a fair assumption to make or no?
Yes. Yeah. Definitely a large variety of our children do use some type of assistive technology, whether it's for mobility, communication, environmental access. That's a fair assumption.
Gotcha. So in that case, it's sort of like you had to use a build a capacity model because it couldn't be like do an evaluation for every single kid. It's like there would be some where they're struggling and we need some help, but otherwise, we've been doing this for a while. We know what resources, we know what to put in place. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Awesome.
One of our larger units is our infant toddler unit. So obviously with those guys, PT and OT are looking at adaptive strollers and some of them stay a while. So we might be starting to look at early AAC. But outside of the infants, I agree with Marisa. Really, everybody has been looked at in terms of, do they need an adaptive chair? Do they need a different way to play? Do they need some kind of early communication? I've heard you talk about like the tier 1 support and the tier 2 support. So we haven't really gone into that model just because our kids are all so different. But I think we as therapists are trying to think about that more just in terms of the AAC. I mean, the seating and mobility, I think they think about that for sure, but also in terms of the AAC and the giving them access to play just as soon and as early as we can. Let's tap into what we can and give them as much ability as possible.
Awesome. Well, okay, you brought up AAC. What does that implementation look like? Do you have groups where you get kids together? Because AAC is like a social thing where you're communicating with other people, but you wouldn't be just working directly with one client alone. Maybe, I don't know. Tell me, how does it all work?
Yeah. So one day as a department, we all sat down and we're like, let's get some groups started within our within our department because we have lots of children with speech goals, a lot of children with feeding goals, and why not make it a social experience? So we kind of put our heads together, made lists of children on our caseload that we felt like have similar goals that we could target in a social setting. And it gives them more of an opportunity to interact and learn from their peers while targeting their goals. So instead of it being such an isolated, structured setting, let's unstructure it. Let's just teach them within a regular context. So we came up with groups of 2 to 4 children based on interests, therapy goals. We group them on level of functioning, regardless of age, gender, AAC device, or grade. So even if they had an AAC device, it didn't matter what hardware, it didn't matter what software, it didn't matter what access method. Just putting kids together in a group was a great way to motivate them, target core language, literacy, play games, have fun, just build community, talk about how was your weekend, like get them to interact with one another in a different way and outside of a structured academic setting. So our weekly groups were so successful that we wanted to give children more opportunity to still work on goals and reduce risk of regression. So we also created these 1-week intensive groups that occurred during school breaks. So it's really nice. Our weekly groups will be 1 time a week. The kids get together. Each child will have a therapist with them. And if we have an extra set of hands, one clinician will lead the group. So this way, everyone has someone supporting them. And then there's someone who's kind of just like running, like leading what's happening or like leading the conversation. So I'll let Marnina talk more about like the structure of our groups and our treatment plans, but it's been a really fun thing that we've implemented and we're happy to be sharing that today with everyone.
Marisa, you said the magic word to me, which is this, you were grouping kids based on interests and then fun, right? You used the word fun. So if you were to think back in the last couple of months of being in these groups, what's the most funnest? Everyone was laughing. What's the thing that like jumps into your mind is like, oh, this is what we did. That was just so cool.
Headbands. Our kids, we have this one group of children. We have an elementary age child, a high school age child, and they just all really like playing headbands. It's like the one thing they all agree on doing, in addition to talking about their weekends or school breaks. They all love telling each other what they did, who they were with, sharing something new about themselves. Like, hey, check it out. I have a new private duty nurse with me. This is her name. I miss my old one. Just like having that casual conversation, they really like. But headbands has been fun. They'll tease each other. They'll decide who goes first. It's just like a really nice opportunity for them to choose what they want to do. And they enjoy doing it with one another. So yeah, that's been the fun game that we play.
and headbands is so great for cognition and for communication because it's sort of like descriptive teaching. Like, okay, this person has Taylor Swift as their card. What can I say that describes Taylor Swift, right? Exactly. So you're digging into all these aspects, and then you're laughing about it afterwards when you either got it or didn't get it, right? And congratulate each other. Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
All right, Marnina, tell us about the structure of these.
Sure. I just want to start by saying, you know how the therapists get bored? The headbands never gets old for the kids.
Never.
They're always like, look, we brought something different. And they're like, no, headbands, you know, when it's a classic, it's a classic. I also just wanted to add to what Marisa was saying. All of the kids who come to our groups also have individual therapy over the course of the week. So we try to structure it so that whatever we're doing in group can be carried over and taught in a more focused way during those individual sessions. So we're definitely trying to kind of interface the two. So in terms of our weekly groups, we're very, like everybody in AAC is right now, we're very core word-based. So we will often, over the course of a month, focus on a book, and within the book, the core and fringe vocabulary associated with it. So we will, like Marisa said, we have 2 to 3 kids, variety of ages. And then over the course of the month, we break it down into reading the book, discussing the book, and then activities related to the core vocabulary in the book. So whether we're doing sensory activities or literacy-based activities, we're definitely trying to integrate, literacy and as much, sight word and literacy and sounds, letter correspondence, just trying to really focus on that stuff as well with our younger kids and with the older kids doing, whether it's predictive chart writing or, writing their own books. But we definitely, over the course of the month, focus on activities related to that book. And then whatever we do, whether it's an arts and crafts activity or a game or some kind of interactive activity, whether it's a treasure hunt or something more interactive like that, we'll definitely cue. Hopefully the individual therapists are there and can carry over those things into additional related or even the same activities again to kind of carry over all the learning and the knowledge over the course of the month. As much as we can, we also try to tie in with the classroom teachers. If there's a way that, especially with our preschool rooms, what kind of things are they doing over the course of the month? How can we work together so that we know that that same vocabulary and the same lessons are being carried over there as well? So as Marisa mentions, once this was going well and we kind of had a structure for a month of activities and kind of put everything together in a box so a therapist could kind of grab it and, oh, here's the book, here are the core words, here's some activities. I know we did this in group. Let me try to do the related arts and crafts activity today. We started to think about those school breaks, those vacations where the kids are at home, and how can we tap into the families and the children for a week. So while our regular groups might be a half hour and you do a different activity over the course of a month, we basically took that idea and merged it into our intensives, where the kids will come over a school break for 3, 4, or 5 days for a few hours each day. So maybe 2.5 hours. And basically in the course of a day, we're doing those same activities, but just more intensely in a longer time frame. And usually because we're doing that, we might do 2 or 3 different books with related vocabulary and overlapping themes over the course of the week and try to end it off Friday where they're writing their own book. And based on things we've done over the course of the week, maybe with each book, we've targeted on something different in the book that we could do a predictive chart writing activity. They could write a page and then at the end of the week, put the books together so that they have something to go home. And there's a perfect way to carry over the language, the vocabulary, the concepts with their family members. Generally, the way it works, because we're hospital-based, when you're just coming in for like our intensives or you're in school and being pulled for therapy, the parents are not here. So every day during the intensives, we would print out a sheet of, here's what we worked on, here's what we did, here's some things that they enjoyed, here's what you could do at home. And then taking the book home with that at the end of the week, we could show the parents at pickup, like, look what they did. What a great way for you guys to talk about what happened over the course of the week and continue using that vocabulary and those materials over the course of time being at home.
Mm-hmm. And to add to that, if a child didn't have that experience, we would bring the experience to them. So we could pull up, like, say the book was about giraffes, we'd pull up like a YouTube live video of giraffes at the zoo. Or say it was a book that we had that maybe the family didn't have access to at home, we'd provide them with like the QR code link to the ebook so they could listen to it online. Just making sure that we were trying to encourage carryover as best as possible and simplify it for the family.
When you're talking about books, are you talking about like, well, I guess maybe it relates to the developmental level of the students. So maybe they're working. So when you said giraffe books, my mind went to Giraffes Can't Dance. Oh, poor Harold. Is that the sort of thing you're thinking of? Or is it also no? And we do an animal book that is much larger and it's we're doing research around giraffes and that kind of stuff. Like, is it typically we're working with the storybooks?
We work with the storybook. So Giraffes Can't Dance was one of the books that we read. So we'll have like a theme for those intensive weeks, whether it's like animals, food, and we'll pick the 5 books based on that theme. That's where we've had the most success because groups can be scary. It can be intimidating. It's like, where do I get started? What do I pick? But picking a theme and then choosing like activities, concepts, books surrounding that theme has been the easiest to just like run with.
Mm-hmm. That certainly aligns with, I think, what most schools do as well, is they pick some sort of theme, then they find supporting materials that go with that theme. They model the core vocabulary. They do writing experiences. They do other literacy experiences where they're finding words and that kind of stuff, right? I'm curious what your thoughts are, if you've ever considered this and said, no, we're not going to do it that way, is sort of flipping it and saying, okay, here's where our kids are language-wise, and this is the next skill that they're going to need. Here's some more words that they're going to use. Like, have you noticed that they're not using the INGs or ED? Why don't we pick books that are all written in past tense, and we'll do structured around that. I'm curious, have you ever done anything like that? Because I think some people are, starting for the last 15 years, some people have started to dabble in that, but it's been such a swimming upstream. Like, yeah, but every teacher knows how to do a theme. We don't start with the theme of the language. So tell me what your thoughts are on that.
So Marnina actually just gave an education. We do like focus groups within our department, and we'll have like weekly topics that we discuss just for that ongoing education and collaboration, and continuing to give everyone the knowledge that they can feel empowered to treat their caseload. And something Marnina talked about was implementing grammar in AAC therapy, because it's one of those like things that I personally even wasn't doing in my therapy. And if that's the next level where the child's at language wise, like, why not just start modeling it? Why start talking about things in the past tense? Like, let's do it. And it's just something that maybe didn't come as second nature to me, but after hearing that, I now have started implementing that into my therapy. So when a child is talking about something even of interest to them, like, I will add in that grammar. Like, maybe it's something related to their weekend. Oh, you did that in the past. And then I'll add that past tense grammar. Or we're counting. I have a child who really likes to count. So we'll then, once there's multiples of something, we'll add the S in. So just like going off of what they like and then implementing the associated grammar, it's definitely something that I've just recently learned to incorporate into my therapy. So I don't know, Marnina, you want to touch more on?
Yeah, I was going to say,
yeah.
I went to at ATIA, actually. I went to Amanda Soper's, did something on grammar instruction, and it really brought thought to that. And I, on my caseload, personally have a 10-year-old who's a very smart boy and has really picked up on using his device. It's brand new really quickly. And I've really, with him, been spending the time. He can produce sentences and working on that grammar and learning to use, like within the app, the little, quick buttons that help you do those things, and trying to work more on that. I think as we try to work more on literacy and the writing, I think it's only natural that some of that grammar and some of those, grammar and that would come next, that's something we would want to work on. So I think that's definitely a way we need to go. Agreed. I think they're getting it in school, but I think having it explicitly taught how to do it on their devices is not something they're getting in school. And I think if that's something we can do to make their academics easier and make their communication more understandable and efficient, that's something we should do. Awesome.
All right. So you already mentioned some of the barriers that you've been facing, like the turnover rate of teachers, and you do the training. Is there anything specific to just working in a hospital setting that is different, or any other barriers that you face, challenges that you're working to overcome?
Yeah, so with being in hospital, you can, with our groups specifically, not every child can attend the group. So you might get stuck then without a group setting, and now it just turns into an individual setting. So that sometimes happens, like your goal and your treatment plan for that day can be really great. You're excited for the group, and then maybe not every child is present or can come. So that's definitely a barrier. Also, just if we didn't plan, so within our intensive groups, we found out this a lot. There wasn't enough movement breaks for our kiddos. There wasn't enough time for that non-structure. We had so much structure planned initially that we had to build in those like movement breaks, those sensory breaks, take some of the structure out of it, because we would lose their interest if it was too structured. So it was all trial and error. Like after the first intensive group we did, we all met and said what worked, what didn't work, like what can we add in next time, what can we change. We started incorporating music therapy. That we would have like a featured, music therapy is coming this day of the week, and that was really neat because it just added another element of a sensory experience for those children to tie in some of the language we were working on and expose it to them in a new way, give them another way to access that language. Then we would incorporate some art, some food. We had to incorporate snack breaks, like all things we didn't really think about initially. And then with time, figured it out. Like, how can we make this more exciting for our kids? How can we engage them? So really just a lot of trial and error, and then meeting afterwards and debriefing about it. Instead of just being like, all right, well, that didn't work, and not talking about it. Like meeting, talking, and having a game plan for next time is so important.
Marisa, I just want to, you can see it, but the listeners can't see the giant smile on my face, because I think a lot of people do plan. And then if it doesn't go well, or they don't take the moment to reflect on it, or if it doesn't go well, the kids were broken. Like, hey, they weren't attending, or they were sick, or like, no, let's reflect on what we can do and build differently, because the kids are kids. Right. So that's just awesome that your team was already aware of that and is, again, sounds like a really supportive place. Like, okay, let's figure out how we can make this better for next time. So cool. Yeah. Just something else to think about, Marisa, is in the planning phase and then the reflection phase of this experience design is, you mentioned like, we need to have more movement breaks or more snack breaks, right? I think it's something that I would invite you to think about as a team is, what if it was the other way around? What if it was, what we need is a sitting break or a stationary break or a seatward break. How does that change the design when we're thinking about how we're going to have this kinesthetic movement as the most of the time, and the, I'm going to sit at my work as the small part of the time. So just, I don't know, something to think about is flipping it in our mind that way.
Yeah, I like that.
That's me too. Can I add just two quick things? One, a lot of our kids have complex bodies. They're the complex communication needs kids who don't get the time out of their chairs and are hard to manage out of their chairs using AAC. So I think that's a barrier, but not a barrier, because we're lucky in that we can work with OT and PT and really tapping into them and being like, how can we make this more engaging? How can we make this different? How can we make them feel more involved, than just sitting in their wheelchair? And I think a shout out to our whole team, not just, we're lucky that when we plan these things with the speech therapist, they're as excited to get involved and be a part of it and problem solve and plan. And we have a great team in that respect. And then, like Marisa said afterwards, to be like, wait, that didn't work, that did work. And everybody's so great. We're really lucky. We have a great team of therapists who are so willing to like, let's figure it out. Let's work it out together. Let's pick each other's brains, but also a shout out to our OT and PT departments who are also so willing to, can I come? Can I take a look? How can I help? How can I support? And trying to work on more collaboration, because I think that's what makes it work so well for our kids.
Yeah. And my brain is now like thinking maybe even inviting those other disciplines to help with the group. So like giving the children like mat time where they can, but with the support of PT and OT, because we're so lucky to have that resource, like, because they could support the access while the child is outside of their chair. And then we can then reduce the time that they're in their chair. So just like, now I'm just starting to think what else we could do with our group. Yeah.
I guess it was before your time, Marisa, when we first started with our AAC groups. Once a week, an OT would come and they would lead the group. So we were sure to incorporate that sensory experience, or like, look at that kid's motor skills. How can they be direct selecting, easier position? What should we be thinking? And I feel like this conversation is making me think maybe we go back to that, even if it's scheduling is hard, if we can do it once a month, just to get that input from some of our OT and PT buddies.
Because we do that a lot in our individual groups. So then now doing it again with our larger groups. Nice.
Right.
Are there any other barriers or challenges?
I mean, I think time is always a barrier. The time to plan, the time to communicate.
Yep.
But we're lucky, we don't we try not to let that stop us. We try to just kind of move ahead.
I wish our groups could be hours long because the time it takes to get there, set all the kids up, and then get them back to where they need to be. You wish you had more time in the day. So,
right. When you think about some of our, a lot of our AAC users are also learning how to drive a power chair.
Yeah.
And once they're in that power chair and they can be in it all day, we're going to encourage that. But probably we need to drive a little slower and getting from the school to the speech department just might take a little longer. But hey, being able to drive your power chair and having that independence is important to us as well. So I agree. We have to pick and choose. It might be a few minutes less of AAC, but carrying over that skill of driving that power chair and being able to come to group and say to their friends, I drove here myself. This is the first time. Or, look, now my device is mounted on my chair. To be able to do those things is exciting for the kids as well. So I feel like you got to just roll with it.
I see what you did there, Marnina. Okay.
Wasn't even deliberate.
Let me ask you this. If this is a barrier or challenge, or maybe you're like, not so much for us, Chris, but something that I know Rachel and I hear quite a bit when we do presentations, it's a common question that pops up, is this concept of presuming potential. The kid won't be able to do that. And maybe some misnomer from people who have not attended your trainings, that work at the hospital, but for whatever reason, they're not there. They weren't part of the larger group that had capacity has been built yet. And so they might have these sort of different assumptions about, AAC, like the classic myth that it's going to steal their language or steal their speech or something like that. Do you feel like you are wrestling with that presuming potential and in helping people embrace the notion that, we're going to teach them to do all the things, right? We're going to teach them how to do all of it. Is that a thing for you or not so much?
Oh, yeah. That's the thing for us. Yeah. I think any, our therapists, I think, are all so positive and open-minded, but I think getting the carryover other places until they can see the success and we have the buy-in, we deal with the same barriers. In addition to the other barriers of they get back from school, back to the unit when they're inpatients, and then they're in bed and the device doesn't get set up, and I feel like, we 100% deal with the same barriers that everybody else is dealing with.
Just a quick, go ahead, Marisa.
I'm just thinking about one of my kiddos in preschool who is using eye gaze to access her AAC device, but her classroom really hasn't seen it yet because we're having trouble figuring out where are we going to mount this device that's ideal in this classroom setting where there's lots of kids and minimal table space and lots going on. And, I'll just push in once a week and just show them during circle time. This is a device. This is how I model. I'm going to presume competence and assume that this child can learn the months of the year. So I'm going to model the months of the year. And then once I saw some aides tuning in on what I was doing and seeing that she was accessing the device independently to label the colors that they were talking about during morning circle, just their eyes lit up and they're like, she could do that. So just kind of showing, I think, and teaching is really important. I think sometimes they just don't know. So they just don't know where to start or so just showing them and showing them what the child is capable of, or just presuming competence and showing that if you do that, look how much more successful the child can be if we do that for them.
Does the experience kick off based on a doctor, like a doctor's order? I'm ordering physical therapy, I'm ordering occupational therapy, or is that sort of the default? Everybody kind of gets screened and then we say hey, I want to pick this up because the screening and I need to do a deeper evaluation for those related services? Or does it start with the doctor? How does it initiate when someone needs a therapy and then by extension AAC?
So we are a medical model. So all of our children, when they come in, will have orders written by the doctors, but we're lucky that we communicate openly with the doctors. So it will sometimes happen that an order was not written and we'll say, wait, could you add X, Y, and Z? And then when it comes to, we will do evaluations for them to get a personal device through insurance. We're lucky that the doctors are there to help fill out the prescriptions, come to sessions to be sure to include in their session notes what we're doing with the AAC and the successes that they've seen to help make the process easier for writing the evaluations and completing the funding packets.
Awesome. That to me screams that who needs to be educated the most is the doctors. Because if it doesn't, right, we need to teach them what to look for and who to order so that the dominoes start, right? The first domino gets knocked down, so it eventually lands in the other domino. And a great way I would imagine to do that is when they've seen a positive outcome. Remember when you knocked on that domino and this kid now has this, and we taught them that with this device? Do that for all the other kids, right? So can you share some stories of some positive outcomes? Like what have you seen this, the weekly groups, the intensives, and this whole dynamic? How, tell us some stories of what of the awesomeness that has come out of it.
Sure. I mean, I think we see the same positive stories that all the clinicians out there who are doing AACC. I mean, we see them come out of their shells. I mean, we really see them start to interact. We see, the classroom staff and the doctors and the nurses like widen their eyes when they can see what's getting done. We see the kids more interested in school, in therapy, in socialization. I think like we know that one mode of communication facilitates other. We've seen an increase in verbalizations. I'm always happy to tell a parent, you don't need that device, you bring it back and we'll put it to use for somebody else. Like our ultimate goal is communication in whatever way is easiest for them. So we've definitely seen kids who become more verbal and have taken off with their verbal speech. We've seen a lot of nice positive interactions between staff. Like everybody gets excited the first time, the kid is putting it all together in their power chair, going over to somebody, using their device to communicate. I think we all see the great work that we do, and it's that pat on the back, and it's that look what we can do and look what else we can do with all the other kids. We're lucky that we've definitely seen the AACUs carry over to other settings. It always starts with us, but we're lucky that doing the groups, pushing in, really working on all of these together as a team has helped us see everybody more willing to learn and do and participate and be a part of it. I mean, the day that we have a special activity and everybody's involved and everyone's using their devices and can go back to the classroom and continue to talk about it, the teachers are happy to have a way to have the kids be involved, but also then use the AAC for other activities. With doing more literacy in our individual sessions, we've seen more carryover of literacy into the classroom, into home. So we've really just seen I really don't think we can say there's been only positive reactions between seeing the kids make gains, seeing the buy-in that we get from everybody, seeing the more interest in working together, seeing the families get excited. It just drives all of us to keep doing what we're doing and, motivates us all to keep up on the most current devices and what else is out there and what else can we do to support our kids. And we're lucky that administration supports our learning and our getting new devices and our working together and our spending the time, because having the time to do that is what helps us also do what's best for our patients.
Marnina, you keep using that word lucky, and I know that is part of it. Like you might not get to influence the administration that's here, but maybe you did get to influence the interview panel, and they're looking for somebody that already understands AAC. And so I want to say, in the same way that you were very complimentary of the work way back then, I want to say, Marnina, you've been there for, what'd you say, 20 years, right? And I would just imagine that it has evolved over the last 20 years, because you're the sort of person that is modeling and modeling that open-mindedness and that eagerness to learn, right? And going after your own professional learning, and then turning that into weekly groups, intensives, and helping it all come together. So yes, I think it's maybe 10 or 20% luck, but that's 80 or 90% your hard work, your blood, sweat, and tears. And I just want to give you credit for it.
I appreciate that. That means a lot, especially coming from you who knows all that it takes, but I couldn't do it without the team that we have here and people who are therapists who are so eager to learn and eager to do what's best and willing to spend the time and the effort and the hard work to make it happen. Because without a doubt, we couldn't do it without that.
Yeah. And I have to say, Marnina leads by example, and she's a great advocate for her patients and all the staff within her department. And it reminds me of the lecture I attended at ATIA, Chris, where you played this really fun TED talk about how it really just takes one person to start a movement. And then next thing you know, the crowd will follow. So kudos to Marnina for being that one person.
Thank you.
Shout out to Mike Murata. He showed that to me. I was his first follower. We'll link the video in the show notes for everybody. It's Sivers is the name of the person that does that TED Talk. But yeah, awesome. All right. So what do you think comes next? I mean, you built these the AAC groups. You started the intensives. What's the next on the horizon?
I would love to see more parent involvement for our kids who are on our day hospital program. Mm-hmm. I see we run there's a classroom that is overseen by the speech department for kids with feeding issues. And I've seen some of the parents really connect over having their children going through the same thing and working on the same things. And it's really families who would never otherwise have anything to do with one another have really connected. And I really would love to see more of that for our AAC users. I feel like so often they feel like they're the only one or, how to get more involved in doing this in the community. And I think connecting our parents and connecting our families not only would be great from a training level, but I think for them on a personal level, I think would make them feel not so alone and make them feel the same way we therapists see each other's successes. I want them to see, as parents and as caregivers, I want them to see each other's successes and learn from that as well. And I would love to kind of that be our next steps. I don't know if it's late afternoon or evening groups to kind of bring these parents and these families together to learn and grow and just be a resource for each other.
Yeah, build a community outside of Blythedale. Something I thought about while we were talking throughout this podcast is like having maybe like a buddy, a AAC user buddy. So within our groups, because we have children in different grades, different ages, we definitely see the younger ones looking up to the older ones, especially kids who just got new equipment that maybe aren't familiar or a little timid by it, or some who are even like embarrassed because what they see a lot of at Blythedale, they may not see outside of here. Like our part-time users who communicate verbally mostly outside of Blythedale, but when they're here, use their AAC devices a lot to communicate because their speech intelligibility is reduced. So when those part-time users see the full-time users who just got like a power wheelchair mount for their AAC device, they're more empowered, like, oh, cool. Like I'm more confident because that kid's using it and they're using it and it looks cool. So maybe just having a buddy, like a role model, like Marnina's my mentor. Why not give these kiddos their own peer mentor to look up to?
I also feel like, I hate saying this, but we still get kids who come in who are too old to never had access to a communication system. Yeah. So we're so lucky that we educate within, but the more education we can do outside of here, because we all want to see the kids having access to robust AAC younger and younger. And we're lucky that a lot of our kids who are coming in for outpatient evals have been 2, 3, 4. Yeah. And it's amazing because we didn't used to get those referrals, but it still hurts when like that 9-year-old comes in and it's like, oh, well, they tried some pictures. I use your phrase all the time that you and Rachel use, like, the reason we don't use PACS is because you've never met an adult who says this system works great for me. Like, let's move away from the pictures and let's move into other things. And I think, unfortunately, as far as the field has come, we still have work to do to get at these older kids access to AAC younger.
Sooner, yeah.
All well said. I love these next steps. I just to reflect a second on the community aspect. I know that's something in the schools that has started as well. Like I know speech therapists that have started like a AAC coffee talk, so once a month or maybe every other week, you can come in a little bit early and we'll sit around and we'll have coffee and we'll talk about a particular topic. And sometimes we'll repeat topics, again, repeat with variety, and so that sounds like, again, another parallel between what you're doing and what's happening in the schools. But like, that's the next thing, right? That becomes the thing. And that buddy program, of course, that is happening in some schools, but not wide enough. So again, that kind of idea, just love it, love it, love it. All right, let me ask you one final thing. The way I like to end these interviews is, we talked about your own professional learning and how you have to be constantly curious and learning about new things. What's on your mind? What are you questing after? What do you want to learn more about? What sort of got you excited for the future that you want to go and digest in some way?
I think as the technology changes, just excited with we recently got our hands on the Tobii TD Pilot, so the iPad with eye gaze. So we see the way AI is changing. We see the way all of our technology is changing. Just excited I hope, and I think it's only going to get easier for our kids with the complex bodies to communicate. And I think I'm excited to see as the technology evolves and changes and improves, what else is out there.
Awesome. Marisa?
Agreed. I'm glad you brought up AI because that's a new territory that I have yet to dive into and want to learn more about, and how I can learn more about AI to help my kiddos out. But also, like, I started listening to a podcast of yours today about Gestalt language processors. That's something I want to learn a lot more about, how to help children who learn language differently and how I can support their learning of AAC based on how they're processing language. And again, how to help support children with varying access methods. So how to build bridges from the low tech, mid tech to high tech. So I have some users who weren't exposed to AAC at a young age. So I have some older, like high schoolers, who I'm the first person who's trying things with them. And we started off low tech and just trying to bridge them to get to that high tech, and also have the parents buy in and see how successful they can be with the high tech. Although it's intimidating, although it's different, like, where can we go with this, and just maximize on their potential and presumed competence. So
yeah, as that community grows, that would help with that, right? Those fears go away when you see more people being successful. Fantastic stuff. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for sharing all about Blythedale and your awesome work, and how how we're so similar. Schools and hospitals are really not that dissimilar. One of the goals that Rachel and I had for this sort of, I don't know, I'll put it in season, I don't know, we're in the starting maybe year 7 when this will air, was realizing we didn't have enough people who are working in hospitals. But now that we've had more conversations with people working in hospitals, we're starting to realize that we are actually very aligned in the work that we do. So that's exciting for me to learn and to hear.
No, thank you. This has been great. You gave us some great ideas that hopefully can help us continue and improve our practice.
Yes, thank you so much for the conversations. They led to lots of light bulbs.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. And let's stay in touch. I'll see you at future ATIAs.
Sounds good.
Sounds great. Thanks, Chris.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Take care.